Good morning, everybody. This is Davis. I am here outside. I'm going to be going over some common equipment that we use throughout our dogs' lives and for dog training. It's not an exhaustive list, but it is what I have on hand right now. And we'll go over each thing individually and over the uses that we can use them for. And we'll go from there. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you'll reply in the comments and we can help you out. All right, here we go. So we'll start off with some collars. There's a bunch of different types of collars here that we have. Here we just have like a standard slip chain. And these are kind of used, you know, in lieu, a lot of people use them in lieu of like a regular collar, but I like to use these in particular for more aggressive dogs that you need more control over. Without any kind of like extra amping them up, I guess you could say. But they're a decent collar. They need to be used appropriately though, otherwise you can definitely hurt your dog. And here we have a fur saver collar, which is basically the same thing. It just has bigger links here. And the bigger links help dogs with longer fur not get caught up in these little tiny links. So it doesn't pull their fur out by accident and cause bald spots. And but it's basically the same function. Here we have a martingale type collar, which kind of has the same function as the prong collar up here. But there's obviously no prongs, it's just nylon. Some of them have this part here as a chain, which is a good transitional tool for trying to get off of a prong collar. But basically these are good. I use these a lot on young dogs and dogs that are trying to slip out of their collars, doing a lot of backing up and things like that. It really helps you. And like this one is adjustable too, so you can use it on many different sized dogs. But basically if they try to pull away, it's going to tighten up with this little link up here and prevent them from slipping their head out. Next, we have just a regular buckle type collar. This one has a plastic buckle, but they do have them with metal buckles as well because sometimes these break. But these are good for dogs that are going to be around the house, or you know, they play with a lot of other dogs, because if the other dog gets caught on them, you can easily just unbuckle it and nobody gets stuck. Here we have just a normal type of buckle collar. And it's just very similar to like a belt. You just put it through and put it in through one of the holes here. These are really good for, you know, dogs that break these things and stuff like that. But even though they are very strong and reliable, if there was some kind of accident where, you know, the dog was caught on something or another dog was caught in the collar, then it's going to be much more difficult to get off. Here we have a leather slip lead, or slip collar, I guess you could say. It's basically the same as these other ones over here. It's just made out of leather. I don't leave any of those kind of collars on my dogs full time. It's more if we're just going to be doing training and stuff. Just because if they get caught on it, they can hurt themselves and they can get it tightened more than you would like. Next here we have e-collar. This one is good for about a mile range, I believe it is. But these obviously are only for use for dogs that have been trained on them by a professional trainer. They can mess things up quite a bit, and they can be awesome tools as well if they are used appropriately. So before you use one of these, please consult with your trainer. I typically wait till they're at least 6 months old to use these, except in extreme cases. And this one here is a bark collar, which goes off automatically, and as the name implies, it goes off when they bark. It corrects them for barking, and it gives them a warning as well. I do not recommend to use these unless you have done some previous training with one of these. It just makes it easier for the dog to understand what's happening if we can control it and not automatic. Once they know what's going on, the automatic one is great. And up here, I forgot the prong collar. This one's just a little small one that I had laying around, but these are also a wonderful tool. I don't use them until the dog's at least 6 months as well, except in extreme cases. But please consult with your trainer before using one of these, because you can also potentially make things worse if you don't use it appropriately. But it has to have a proper introduction, and the dog needs to have a clear understanding of what's expected of it before you use one of those. Next, we'll go over some different types of harnesses that I have here. This one here is a very heavy-duty harness. It has the leash attachment point here on the back. It's like midway down the back. And this one is called an agitation harness. So we use this one for protection training. It basically is going to distribute a lot of the weight and pulling and impact on this front chest plate here, so they don't hurt their neck or anything else. Most people aren't going to need a harness like that. It's not going to be very good for walking at all. It is purely for the comfort of the dog during extreme kind of physical activity. Here we have one that people will use on younger dogs. This one has a front attachment point and a back attachment point. Personally, I don't use these harnesses. I know a lot of people who do like to use them, but I'm just not a fan because it doesn't give you as much control as like a regular collar or a training collar. But there's nothing wrong with using them if your dog is doing well on it. Here I have it's called an X-back harness, and this one, it's kind of hard to show you exactly how it's designed, but this one is like for sled dogs and things like that. It also kind of serves the same purpose. It just makes the physical activity more comfortable for the dog. This one was given to me by a former client when their dog died, but it's awesome for doing sledding, for doing bike joring, for things like that, which is an activity that's really fun for the dog, but you do have to do some training for that. There's also some like easy walk harness and things like that, which I am not really a big fan of, but they do well for some dogs. I'm not a fan of using them on puppies and stuff because it can kind of interfere with how they walk and end up affecting their gait over the long term. But for adult dogs, if it works for your dog, then it works for your dog. Next, we're going to go over a couple different types of muzzles that I have here. There are more types that I just don't have. But here is just like the normal, most of the time these are made out of mesh. But I had this for my old German Shepherd who was quite a big dog. He was not a fan of the vet, so he had to wear one of these when he went in. It really just prevents them from opening their mouth to bite. So they can probably still nip you with the front teeth, but it prevents them from getting a good bite on you and or anybody. But they are strictly for use in like that short vet term or vet setting. This is not going to be something that you would want to take your dog for a walk in. It's going to prevent them from panting, which is the way that they cool down. So if you're trying to use this in the summer, your dog's going to be very unhappy and could have a really bad time. If you need to have a muzzle that you're going to be able to walk your dogs with and stuff, you want to use one of these kind of basket muzzles. It's going to give a lot more airflow to the dog. They're going to be able to open their mouth and pant. They can drink through this. They can eat. So it's a much more appropriate muzzle for everyday outdoor activities. Neither one of these, obviously, or any muzzle for that matter, should be worn without supervision. They can definitely get caught on it. They can hurt themselves if they're trying to get out and they get stuck. So please, with supervision only, and also do appropriate muzzle training. Ask one of your trainers about that. It's a very helpful thing, and I know a lot of people see these negatively, but the safest dog in the room is the one that has the muzzle on because it's the one that can't bite you. Everything with a mouth can bite unless they're wearing one of these. Next, we'll go over the different types of leashes that I have here. So here I just have like a standard 6-foot leather leash. There are many different materials that they make leashes with, but leather is my preferred. But they do have nylon, and they do have what's it called, biothane. Biothane is kind of like leather. It just doesn't get as worn out from the elements and stuff. But I like 6 foot, but they also make 4 foot and 8 foot leashes and tactical leashes and all this kind of things. I would stay away from any kind of bungee leash or anything like that, because it's going to really take away some control from your dog, or control from you, from your dog. We have here a slip lead, and sorry about that, slip lead, and this one is just nylon, and it has a little leather stopper here that you can adjust so it doesn't get too big and come off your dog's neck. I like to use these on pretty much every dog when I'm first starting out. It's going to accomplish a couple things. It's going to tighten so they can't get away if they're trying to back out. It's going to give me a little bit more control to keep them focused, or if they start to have a meltdown. But most of the time they transition off of these pretty quick. It's a lot of times you just use it to teach some leash pressure and things like that without having to worry about them getting away. Here we have a long line. This one's 15 feet, but they come in all sorts of different sizes, anywhere from like 10 to 50, and probably even higher than that. But 15 is a good starting point for most people. These are going to be really good for practicing recalls, where you're by yourself or with another person, just to help you catch your dog if they start to blow you off, or if they start having the zoomies and running around and basically are not listening in general. I like to use these also for off-leash hiking when I'm first starting. I'll let them drag it behind them, just so it's easier for me to get them again if they are starting to be a little silly. I go over these a little bit in my off-leash hiking video, but definitely a tool worth investing in for any kind of dog owner. It just makes life a little bit easier when you are trying to practice off-leash training. And the last thing we have here are these boots. And boots are, they take some training to get the dogs used to them. Most dogs don't like things on their feet. But these boots here, these are kind of big for any of my dogs, but it was for one of my old dogs. And these are great if you live in extreme climates. So like up here in New England, there's a lot of ice and they put a lot of salt down on the roads. And if you want to continue to walk your dog and not worry about the salt, which will burn their feet, then you got to get them used to these kind of boots, or use some other kind of protective coating on the feet. But the boots protect their feet from the elements and make it overall a more comfortable experience for the dogs in extreme weather. They're also really good for warm climates where the pavement can be too hot for the dogs to walk on without burning their feet. And I'm sure I'm missing some other things here, but this is what I have on hand right now, and it seems like quite a lot. And most people are not going to need even half of this stuff. But I did want to go over it just in case you had any questions about some of the different tools that we use during dog training. And please keep in mind that not every dog is going to need every tool, and we kind of judge what the dog's going to need on a case-by-case basis and what your goals are. But anyway, have a great day, and I hope this video was helpful. And I look forward to hearing about you guys and your experience with these tools, and any questions you have, I'd love to answer them.